Hey up, it's History Boy, and well, it's technically Friday, depending where you are, and um, you know, those of you on my channel, depending on where you are, and how much of the content you check out on my channel, um, you might know that I've decided to dispense with the Fridays, the fun facts with Liam thing for a bit. It could be anywhere from a couple of a month, couple of months, whatever, until I decide to go back into it. Inspiration's a funny thing, as I like to say on this channel. Um, so yeah, I mean, as it's still kind of a weekday, I like to keep a kind of not theme going, but like to sometimes think it, you know, get my motivation mojo going, and so I've been thinking of like another Ruminations episode, and this one is regarding another besides Sopranos and all the other shows I like to talk about. Ben 10, all that kind, and I guess yeah. Well, other films, yeah, films apart from shows like Kingdom of Heaven and sequels to other things. And for example, like on one of my other channels, there was a video where I mentioned Kingdom of Heaven and Ben 10 kind of, or Ben 10,000 and all that kind of stuff. Um, and also, yeah, it was it was shows. It was regarding Mortal Kombat Conquest, or Mortal Kombat Legacy, even Legacy. Who would be in if they made one season 4, for example. But this one is regarding um, my favorite HBO show besides The Sopranos, and that's Boardwalk Empire, which had a bit of a an anti-climactic ending. When it was cut off at season 5, but this one is regarding season 2 to season 3, with spoilers for incoming spoilers for anyone who's hasn't watched the series or is currently getting to that point. But for those who have watched the series a couple of times, like I have, already know the thing with Jimmy Darmody and Manny Horvitz. Jimmy Darmody played by Michael Pitt, who was also made that's the sicker um children's tear collector Mason Verger in the Hannibal series, and Manny Horvitz played by John Forsyth, who was um, Michael Myers's awful redneck abusive stepdad in Rob Zombie's Halloween, for example. That's kind of the only reference I can come up with right now. But Manny Horvitz is a Jewish gangster who, from Odessa, Ukraine, or just Russia at the time, Russian Empire. I just guess Russia at the time, Prussia, Russia, whatever. He was already, I guess, pushing 60 at the time in 1925, 1921. So it would have been just maybe Prussia. But anyway, that's besides the point. As you know, Dashi AXP's rendition of Raiden, and likes to say, you'll understand if you watch those things. Um, you know. But anyway, yeah. The whole thing with Jimmy dealing or not dealing with Manny Horvitz, um, him trying to basically take the Jimmy getting too a bit too big for his britches, kind of in a way, and deciding to basically stick the middle finger up at Manny Horvitz, the kosher butcher from Philadelphia. And then there's a little I guess mini kind of mob war between him in Atlantic, between Jimmy in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and uh, Manny in Philadelphia. But the way that Jimmy, I mean, there's a bit in it that you know those who've watched it will know where Jimmy sends like a patsy, like a sort of a hitman to just, I call him a patsy because he does a shit job. Excuse my French. I don't know how to auto censor words on, on YouTube. Maybe I mean the only thing I've got so far, I've only got kind of round that by, through the automatic captions when, when it's on mute. But yeah, he does a bit of a, Jimmy does bit of a botched job on it. Well, I say a bit, that's a bit of an understatement. Um, but yeah, he sends a guy round who may or may not be Jewish, but he knows how to speak Yiddish and, allow, he gets Manny to let him into the shop. Then he runs away. Then there's another guy who shoots at him with like a sawn-off shotgun, and he breaks into the butcher's shop, and he's tussling with Horvitz, and he gets a like a cleaver or machete through his skull for the trouble, and he just happens to have um I don't know, Jimmy's calling card or something on him. I think it was or like a, like a business card kind of thing. I don't know what. I think the intention was the hitman offs Manny and then drops it on his body. But, Manny turns the tables, cracks his skull open, kills him, and finds the card on him. And then there's the whole thing where it leads up to uh, Manny looking for Jimmy, trying to kill him, kills his wife's woman lover, kills them both. Sort of as like a bit of a lesson slash punishment for Jimmy. And then, you know, more or less when Jimmy ends up biting the dust, being killed by Nucky and all the rest of his cronies. I say him and the rest of his cronies. I mean by proxy. His cronies were there. Irish fixer, gangster, hitman, whatever. Owen Slater and Manny's. Of course, Manny's there again because he's now on. He's like a on Nucky's payroll now or whatever. Or whatever happened there, but then he gets, of course, those of you who've watched the entire series, like I said, he gets offed by Jimmy's comrade and friend Matt Richard Harrow. Pretty much right in front of his wife on his doorstep. But the way Jimmy handled it all, it was pretty naff. It was stupid. It was like it was almost it was. I like to say it was realistic, but at the same time, it kind of wasn't. It was and it wasn't. I don't know how I feel about it, but I think the whole thing is like pertaining. I'm leading into sort of a what if as well, where I think big part of it is because Michael Pitt, plays Jimmy, of course, was due to leave at the end of that season, at the end of season 2, and apparently he was a bit of a pain in the ass to work with. Um, you know, so I read, but it makes me wonder if Michael Pitt wasn't a pain in the buttocks to work with, and wasn't leaving, or would he still be leaving anyway? But say if he wasn't leaving, right? How would the final showdown or dealing with um, Manny Horvitz have gone? Would Horvitz have still would he have still stuck around? Because I don't think Michael Forsyth had any intent to leave, and he wasn't having any kind of behind the scenes trouble, like for example, like how Michael Pitt was. So it makes you think. It makes you think that would Horvitz have still would Horvitz slash John Forsyth have been due to leave, early season 3 anyway, because season 2 is where Jimmy bites the dust at the end of the season 2, and the third series, or excuse me, been having a few beers, bit of a belch there, would yeah, would Horvitz have just been basically being offed during season 3, regardless of Jimmy being around, sort of being alive in universe. Anyway, so yeah, basically, these Ruminations episodes. Feel free to discuss. Kind of two things. Kind of two and a half, I guess, things, or whatever. Maybe just two. But anyway, I'll get to my point. Yeah, how should Jimmy have dealt with Horvitz? Because the whole issue is the kind of him not. It starts with him not paying him his money, and then Jimmy's mother, Gillian, kind of talks him into not doing it. It's like, you're the boss. You shouldn't be disrespected. So you don't really owe him anything. She says that in her own way. Can't remember what exactly she says, but it's basically the gist of it. You're not to be. You're not to be ordered around, kind of way. So don't give him anything. And then that kind of comes back to bite Jimmy in the ass, because he's taking over, his dad's position, the guy who basically built Atlantic City. Atlantic City basically was Vegas before Vegas, but yeah, I'll end it at how should Jimmy have dealt with Horvitz or resolved the issue in either getting him whacked or paying him his money. So I'm going to leave it there because I'm running out of time. Peace.